Because dance is supposed to be a place where you use your body as the instrument or the tool to pursue your passion for music and movement through your body. Your body's supposed to be a safe place to make yourself feel good. And in my experience, and dozens of other people that I know that have similar stories as me, dance can be a really toxic environment. It can be abusive, it can be violating, it can be physically demanding to the point where you cross the line between pushing your limits and testing yourself as an athlete versus making you become fucking disabled. So I'm going to share my story, and hopefully it helps anybody who is currently going through something similar, or maybe you are somebody who has kids and you want to put your kids in classes and you're thinking about helping them get started with that journey. Maybe you're somebody who also became disabled from dance, and ultimately this is for anybody who might benefit from this knowledge in a way that causes them to live a healthier life and possibly prevent terrible things from happening to themselves altogether. So when I was about 5 or 6, I think I took my first ballet class, and I took dance classes recreationally for about the next several years or so until one of the teachers that I was taking a hip hop class from, she branched off and started her own business, her own studio, and I didn't really know what the fuck was going on. I was low-key prepubescent at the time, and I just remember my mom saying, we're gonna go to Nona's now. Like, this is where we dance, this is where you're gonna start taking classes, we're gonna have you try out for the competition team, blah, 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 blah. So I ended up trying out for the competition team, or the quote-unquote performance team as it was called, and I made the team. I didn't know that for the next 8-7 years of my life, I would be in a place that felt, looking back from a more older, educated point of view, like a cult. The things I endured there, not just physically, but emotionally and mentally as well, took a huge toll on just my entire existence, honestly. And if I could pick one thing that I regret most, it would be going to that studio and pursuing competitive dance at a young age like that. Dance requires your body to be put in a lot of positions, like physically, that are not normal and healthy, but it's so normalized as a part of the craft that you just think that it's something to be proud of and accomplish if you can push all of your limbs and joints into a position that they aren't supposed to be in, and force yourself day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year to keep doing that, and then to just keep doing more. A lot of things that you might see dancers do if you've never danced before is, wow, that spin looks cool, or that leap looks cool, or that move looks really cool, but do you notice how abnormal and wrong it seems when dancers are told by their doctors, if you keep dancing, you won't be able to walk anymore? Things like that are so normalized in the dance community, especially the professional and competitive dance scene, that as a kid, you just grow up thinking that the more pain my body takes, the better of a dancer I'm becoming, and the more I will accomplish, and then the more opportunities I will get. But it is not normal that myself and a bunch of other preteens and teens were walking into the studio exhausted, about to start 4 hours of practice, and we're all taking out these mini ibuprofen bottles to pop pills before we go hurt ourselves. Now, a lot of people in the dance scene I met had bodies that were naturally, I guess, more able to do certain things. Like, it didn't cause them as much damage. The wear and tear was a little bit of a different experience for them. They were working just as hard, but the damage was not as much. And I think a trap that I got caught in was comparing myself, because teachers do play favorites with dance. Dance isn't just about being athletic. It's a performance. It's an art. You know that everything you're training for is going to be for an audience. So the studio environment does have a lot of comparison, and I didn't know I was developing a fucking disability at the time, and God, I wish I was, but my body was going through already so much, and then to have the pressure of like, why can't you dance like so-and-so? Why can't you do this? My teacher would do that a lot. she'd put me in front of other people and she'd tell me to do the choreography and she'd say, do it like so-and-so. Why can't you do it like so-and-so? And I remember feeling like I wanted to cry in those moments because all I felt like inside was, you're asking me to fucking hurt myself. I can't aerial across the floor, fouette into a middle split, and then fucking stag my way over the stage. Like, I can't, my body couldn't do certain things, and my body was constantly begging me to just stop dancing. But I didn't know how bad it would get. My brain was literally in a position, because I was brainwashed by all this crap, to believe that eventually it will be worth something. Eventually it will pay off. Here I am, 13 years after the worst injury of my life, and that injury led to becoming disabled. So what happened was, when I was about 14, 15, I was a sophomore in high school, and I injured my hip flexor. My psoas, my hip flexor, like that whole area of my leg was fucked up, and it was from a repetitive strain injury. It was from having kind of been going out a little bit, but there's no break in dance, because shame on you if you pull out of a routine, especially close to competition time. Shame on you. You cannot skip class. Oh my god. I remember one time one of my teammates missed a funeral, and she said that our coach told her, you need to think about your priorities before you decide what you're going to do this weekend. And that was before a competition. So this teenage child it doesn't even matter if you're a child or an adult, I'm sorry. If somebody dies and you're being guilt-tripped to not go to the funeral, that's fucking insane. Like, that's actually, like, there's something clinically ill about that to me. But anyways, my hip started to go out, and I was terrified to go ask my teachers if I could sit out. I was terrified to pull out. I was terrified to not just keep going, because in dance, the mentality is you push yourself and you don't deserve to rest until you get where you're going. But the thing is, once you get where you're going, there's another competition, there's another class, there's another performance, so the cycle never ends. You're expected to essentially dance until your body physically gives out, and then when it physically gives out, you get up and keep going. That is exactly how people get injured. That is the science behind injury, by the way, and like the physiology of the human body. If you don't give it a break when it's crying out for one, when it's actually injured, when it's objectively broken on any level whatsoever, whether it's acute or chronic or anything in between, you have to stop. But in dance, that's unacceptable, and the culture that I was in at my studio felt like a cult because it was shamed. It was looked down upon. You were looked at as a burden and somebody that was hurting other people for not wanting to hurt yourself. So when my hip started going out, the only thing that scared me was letting my teacher know. And when I finally did let her know, it was when it was injured. And even then, I was still expected to keep dancing. And when you're that young and dance is your entire world, and you spend more time at the studio than you spend at home or with your family. I mean, my family was super abusive anyway, so I kind of liked being in the studio because it was an escape. It was culty and uncomfortable, but it felt better than being at home. So I also had that to juggle with, was, okay, this is my one place where I can go where I'm not like near my mom or other people. One of my abusers went to the studio, who was my sister, but everybody else in my family wasn't there, so it felt like a relief. Except my little brother, who's the best. Love you, Tony. And I finally thought that when I was injured and nearly in crutches from this injury, maybe I'll get to sit out. But no. I had to keep on going, and how dare you even come up to me and tell me you're injured? Why aren't you just pushing through it? My teacher always said pain is weakness leaving the body. The fact that I felt like it was not safe for me to make choices about myself and my body was like largely due to the coercion, and my instructor was the type of person that would say shit like, I would never make you do that. I would never say that. I would never. Like, I know that she would just be like defending her point if anybody ever called her out, but it doesn't matter how you're saying it. When you're creating an entire culture and environment where this kid is literally shit on for wanting to not hurt herself, you're telling people that it's wrong to take care of your body. That's it. That's it, period. You're a grown-ass adult. You should know that. Can you understand how a teenager hearing those words while their body's already going through so much, and then put the layer of being a competitive dancer on top? Do you understand how that altered my brain chemistry to think that there was something wrong with me for being aware that there was something off about my body, and being courageous enough to say, hey, I can't do this. To set a boundary in a place where boundaries didn't exist. So, resting and healing, even though my physical therapists and all the doctors I was seeing literally ordered me, you need to stop dancing and take a break and keep moving, but what you're doing needs to stop. And I took this information to my teachers, specifically the teacher who was the owner and the fucking leader of the studio. I took this information to her thinking that she would finally allow me to take care of my body, and she didn't. She was angry. She was stone cold with me, and she didn't yell like Abby Lee Miller, but she was very threatening and demeaning with her tone. She'd look at you and make full eye contact and not blink, and she'd talk like this: Gianna, you have a responsibility to be on this team. You cannot keep sitting out. How do you think you're gonna get better if you keep resting it? Shit like that. And honestly, I blocked out a lot of trauma from her in that studio, so I'm gonna spare you the whole spiel, the whole lecture of all the things that were said to me. Maybe I'll save that for another recording, but it was like I was going to hell or something. I mean, it was terrifying. She made me feel like I was so worthless that the idea of me doing what was best for my body and my health and my present and my future life, she made me feel like, oh my God, you have the audacity, how dare you? That's so dehumanizing, to be vulnerable because your body is injured. I couldn't even rely on my body to not hurt or rely on it to function normally. I was so vulnerable. That is exactly what an injury does. That's the science of injuries in the body, is you need to recover it or it's not going to go away. But how the fuck was I supposed to know when all I ever knew and all I grew up around was you keep going until you're dead and then you pick yourself up and keep going. So I had this expectation of myself that if I would just keep hurting myself, eventually it would stop hurting, and it never did. So I was never allowed to just sit out in class. The team captains and the favorites were. They could sit on the mat when they had the flu and not do anything and stay bundled up in their jackets. I had an injury that was causing me to limp around just to get to class at school. That was hurting when I squatted to wipe my ass from the toilet, but I had to stand in the back the whole time when my doctor recommended resting. My doctor said, your hip is so messed up that it's causing all of these other parts of your body to compensate. You need to stop now. But Nona, of course, was like, you need to stand in the back. Do arms, she'd say, is I would go to the back of the room and we'd have to, those of us that were injured and not supposed to be fucking moving or dancing at all, would have to stand up the whole time. And you can't use your legs? Okay, use your arms. Use your arms. So we do the arms, we do the upper body movements, and if we were to leap, we weren't allowed to chasse and step leap. We had to just do these weird little marking movements and then lift up my leg. I was so injured that I couldn't even mark without hurting. Even marking was aggravating my symptoms and making my muscles spasm. So I would stop. And then she'd pull me aside and lecture me about, you don't want this enough. And she was right about the fact that I didn't want it bad enough, because what I wanted more than to dance in that moment was to recover so that I could keep doing dance and so that I could be healthy and live my life and not have to hurt anymore and not be, developing a freaking disability. I remember one time we had a guest choreographer come in, literally lectured me in front of the class. He pointed to me and he goes, you. And I looked around, I was like, me? can't you tell I'm standing in the corner of the room, like only using half my body? Why would you do that? And so I looked around and he goes, yeah, you, I'm talking to you. And he was so mean about it. And so I remember, like, I had to muster up every courage and every bone in my body to speak up for myself, because at that point I was like, okay, every adult in this room is literally actively choosing to harm me and push me to harm myself. And so I said, I'm injured. And he goes, what? And I was like, I'm injured. And one of my teammates goes, she's injured. Thanks, Charlie. And he was like, oh, well, no wonder you weren't trying so hard. Again, like every other fucking day in that studio, I was holding back tears because I was doing the best I was, and I was already vulnerable and injured. And then to be lectured and shamed for that, that's a big fucking deal. Like, that shit went to my head and my body, and it just further implanted the idea in me that I was selfish for wanting to take care of myself, and that it was an unintelligent and an unprofessional move to literally follow my doctor's order, who is a professional, about injuries and what you need to do to make the injuries better and prevent them from worsening. The fact that my experience was not taken seriously, the fact that my teacher and my coaches and the environment I was in felt like they had the authority, that they felt entitled to have the authority to tell me that I was wrong for following my doctor's orders. Doctor or not, I'm injured. This is my body. I'm a dancer, so I spend all my time and energy learning what it feels like to be in my body. I can point to every single freaking centimeter of my body and make it move, or know what it feels like, or imagine something happening. Like, as a dancer, you know your body better than anyone. So when I had the physical therapist and doctors sit down and tell me, hey, something's wrong, you need to stop dancing, I knew they were right. But in my studio's and teacher's eyes, there was nothing I could do to, like, actually be worthy of taking ownership of that truth. And that, to me, is where things just went completely downhill. Ultimately, what ended up happening is I took a little bit of time off. I had a panic attack to my teacher one day, and I told her, you keep telling me to dance, and it's just making me worse. She looked at me and goes, well, I didn't know it was that bad. And I'm like, how the fuck did you not know it was that bad? You see me limping into the studio, and I can't even mark the moves. Like, what the fuck is she talking about? Also, looking back at that is so fucking ridiculous, because how the hell do you not know? How are you gonna use that as an excuse? I didn't know it was that bad. So a teenage girl coming to you saying, my doctor says my body is so fucked up that I need to take a break. Here's medical scientific evidence. And that's not enough for you to quote unquote know it was that bad? My ass. And I don't really remember, like, the rest of that conversation because I was so scared that I dissociated for most of it. But by the end of that conversation, it was, okay, like, I get it. Like, you can take some time off. A couple weeks later, for an injury that's supposed to take months to heal, I was expected to be on the floor again. I was scolded and talked down to, and passive-aggressively looked at like I was just murdering people when I didn't want to fucking push myself that far. So eventually I just got back in the cycle of, like, dancing with an injury. And there were a lot of other people that had injuries around me, and they were in a similar boat where, yeah, I just got out of crutches, or yeah, I have, like, my entire muscle group in this leg taped up, or yeah, I'm miserable and I dread coming here, but I guess we just gotta keep going, like, that's dance. So she had a studio full of injured people, not everybody, but several of us, and we were constantly expected to dance like we weren't injured. And that just doesn't make any sense. Like, it's like looking at somebody for having curly hair, and you keep telling them to straighten it, and eventually they're like, dude, it's gonna stay curly, and you're like, well, this is a fucking problem. You're letting me down, you're letting the team down, you're letting yourself down. And so I was constantly in this negative loop in my mind of, like, my body is my machine, I can make it do what I want to, and then feeling guilty because it felt like I was abusing myself every time I had to think like that, which was all the time. And over the next few years, like 2 or 3 years after that, my symptoms just kept getting worse and worse. I remember shortly after this injury first happened, I noticed that I would sit in class and part of my lower back would hurt so much. And I didn't understand it because my hip was what was injured. But the hip was so messed up and so traumatized and worsened by having to keep dancing on it that my body started to compensate. So what was already a limping, debilitating hip flexor psoas injury turned into chronic lower back pain. It's not normal for a 15-year-old to be fidgeting around and massaging her back in class because she can't sit through 5 minutes of a lesson without feeling like she's going to pass out from how much her back hurts. I started leaving school a lot to go to doctor's appointments and see more and more specialists, and then I'd go to dance, and everything that I was told by the specialist would go in one ear and out the other because I was bullied into ignoring science. And I don't know how to explain it, but that's the thing about dance is you got to be careful with what studios you're at and what the environment is and what level dance you're pursuing, because it really can feel like a matter of life or death to not continue on with what you're being told, even when what you're being told is hurting you and you know it. And I just wish so bad that I would have stuck with recreational dancing or found a competitive studio that wasn't what it was. But that's the thing about dance is it's so normalized in the whole field of dance, especially when you're young, that I don't even know if going to a different studio would have helped. But I still just wish I wasn't there because time went on and things continued to get worse. Now, by my senior year of high school, I was like, what the fuck is going on? This is not normal. None of my peers have to lie and say that they have to go to the bathroom 3 times, 4 times, 5 times throughout class just to get up and relieve themselves from sitting down. When sitting on my ass became so debilitating that I started skipping school, but God forbid skip dance because I get chewed out for that, that's when I knew this just needs to stop. I just can't do this anymore. My senior year, I quit dance, and it was the best year of my life in such a long time. I realized what it felt like to have friends, and after school, if you want to hang out with your friends, you could just hang out with them. If I want to study for a test, I can actually study for a test and not get lectured for skipping dance to pursue my academic and educational priorities for a fucking night. I could actually live my life, and it was incredible. I did miss performing. To this day, I still miss performing. I still miss dance. I still dance around in my underwear to my favorite songs when my body will allow me to. But life was so different. I felt like my life was not existing to be this pawn in this culty ass dance studio game. I was just Gianna, and I could just live my life. My symptoms, however, did not go away. They actually got a lot worse because I had spent so many years pushing through them that the acute pain that I was experiencing at that point had turned into chronic pain. And that was really scary for me, and I didn't understand how to conceptualize in my mind a life where I was constantly going to be feeling like this. And as time went on, the symptoms continued to get worse and worse until senior year. I had to, before graduating, have my science teacher sign off on my graduation credits. I would not have been able to graduate high school because of how many classes I missed due to being in pain and having to go to the doctor's appointments all the time. So he signed off, and luckily he was very understanding, and he was like, I can tell that you've had a lot of health issues. I'm not going to hold you back because your body has been going through a lot of things that you can't control. And he was my biology teacher, and I was like, he's fucking lit. This is so wow. In that moment, I got really in my feels because I was like, I'm not being punished for going to the doctor for something that I didn't cause and something that I can't help. You're not gonna berate me or make me feel like this minuscule piece of trash for having to take care of my health. It was the first time in my life that an adult that was aware of what I was going through, actually, he didn't even know the details. That's what's even crazy, is my teachers witnessed me limping in and still grinded on me, and like my dance teachers watched me go through that. This teacher didn't even know the details, but the fact that this young girl was missing school all the time to go to the doctor, his brain was actually had enough dignity toward life to acknowledge that this is important and this is not something that she should be punished for. So I wasn't punished for trying to prioritize my health. Thank you, Mr. Shaw. I will never forget you. But yeah, so that's how bad it was at that point, and from then on, it just got worse and worse and worse, and nothing got better. Everything just kept going downhill. No matter what I did, no matter what I tried, I was following all these doctors' recommendations, and my symptoms just weren't going away. When I was 19, I stopped going to college because I could not sit in class for a lecture. I really just could not do it. My entire body would spasm. My muscles would be in so much pain. My nervous system was on fire to the point where I felt like I wanted to fucking die. At that point, I couldn't even pursue an education because laying down or sitting up in a chair and trying to focus on reading something was impossible because of how much pain my body was in. Now, mind you, I was a dancer for most of my youth. My body took pain on a daily basis, and I had a very high pain tolerance. So for the pain to get so extreme and overbearing that my body could not fathom living in it for a second longer, I like, research chronic pain. The average person with chronic pain, every chronic pain condition is different, but the average chronic pain patient, I read a quite lengthy study the other day where it was like, you would have to stay up for, I think, weeks at a time until your body completely, like, goes unconscious, and, like, you'd have to do activities that bring you physical discomfort and do all of these things for weeks at a time, like no sleep, no rest, no relief when you feel sore or tired or achy, to get to the point of feeling even a fraction of what a chronic person in chronic pain who is disabled from chronic pain feels on a daily basis. So to give you an idea of what my life has been like since I was about age 19, age 20, is every day, every second of my life, unless I am completely unconscious and asleep, my body experiences pain that would have the average person or somebody who is not disabled from pain in the emergency room. The average person would be hurled up in fetal position, trying not to vomit from how fucking hurt they are physically. Now imagine living like that, but no matter how much time passes, your symptoms don't decrease. My body continues to feel that way, and there is no go to the emergency room, get a medication, have an emergency operation, and the whole thing sucks, but you go home and you're better. You're on the road to recovery because the pain has an end. That's not my life. I don't have the privilege or the freedom or the gift of experiencing that. My health is fucked up. I have to do the craziest things just to prepare myself for the easiest things. I don't get to have hygiene the way I used to because every time I wash my hair, it feels like my body is being punished. It hurts. It hurts to brush my teeth. It hurts to use my voice box because the muscles in my throat are connected to my neck and upper back, which, by the way, what started as a hip flexor and then lower back pain spread to everywhere. It hurts to talk. It hurts to wipe my ass. It hurts to bend over and put on my shoes. It hurts to use the steering wheel. Oh my God, I love driving, but ever since my disability from this injury developed, I cannot drive without having to really make sure that I can do it without crashing or without my muscles being in so much pain that they give out. So I have a car, but I can't even use my car as freely as I want to. I live like a freaking sock that you just took off and threw in the laundry and never washed. That's what my body feels like. I struggle with suicidal ideation on a daily basis because of how much pain I'm in. And also because of how much of my life has been stolen from me. I went from being somebody who was a full-time college student with dreams and hopes, and I never really liked college anyway. I don't know if I would have finished college if I hadn't become this disabled, but like the fact that I just saw the world as filled with possibility, and my future seemed like this empty canvas that I could just go through life painting on, and if I didn't like something, I could make a new painting. And if I liked the painting, then I could dip in some more colors and keep going. Like, I had dreams, I had goals. I don't even remember what most of them were, because eventually I got to the point where my only dream was to die. My only dream was to stop hurting. That is still my only dream, is like for my body to stop hurting so much. Now, environment is definitely a thing, okay? I have a sister who went pro dance and literally cheered for the NBA and the NFL, and she had a condition when she was really young that made it hard for her to walk. But I was the scapegoat, abused black sheep of the family. I was the person that knew things were wrong and said something about it, and then was physically, emotionally, verbally, and mentally abused for voicing the problem. My sister was the golden child. She ganged up on me with my mom, and when I watched Cinderella, I started to see my mom as the stepmom and my sister as the evil stepsisters. Like, I was abused really bad in my family, which also made me wish I wasn't alive. So I do feel like there's a possibility that if I had been in a better environment, you know what I mean? Like, how come my sister was disabled and was able to pursue her college degree and her literal professional dance career? Like, she went big, you know? Like, that's a big deal to be fucking auditioning and get a spot on a team like that. But how come she was able to do that? And when I was disabled, I went from being disabled to just more disabled and losing my life. You know? Like, how can one daughter who is disabled have the support and love to get her into a place where she can thrive, and the other daughter was disabled and was just beaten down and abused and didn't thrive? I've thrived in a lot more ways than people in my family, because I found what it feels like to love myself and know the truth regardless of how many people want me to have it shoved back down my throat. Like, I've thrived in ways that are definitely so valuable and that I wouldn't trade for anything, but nothing in my life has been worth, you know what I mean, like, worth the pain. It's kind of like people who get trafficked and they're like, yeah, no, I have wisdom, but what the fuck? The cost and the trade-off for it is ridiculous. And that's how I feel about dance, is not a second in that studio, not a second with that team, not a second on stage, not a second in any class was any of it worth it to be where I am now. I've never met anybody who has become chronically ill or disabled from dance like that, like rigorous competitive dance, that looks back and says, yeah, it was worth it. Because when I look back, all I see now, and the older I got especially, is I see it for what it was. When I had to leave school because sitting on my ass was so fucking painful and doing nothing hurt so much, and when I tried to do other things it hurt, when I got to that point, oh my god, of course I wasn't looking back missing being in class and being on a team that had me fucking torturing myself all the time. It was not worth it. And again, like, dance will always have been worth it, but I could have danced in an environment where that wasn't demanded of me. And if that wasn't demanded of me, I would have been able to pursue my love for music through movement in a way that wasn't harmful to me. You know what I mean? Like, just imagine going to a recreational little studio, or being on a school dance team, or being in some environment where you're not expected to hurt yourself, like it's some code of honor. I just can't imagine not only how undisabled I would be, but what kind of dancer would I be? because I never even got to see what kind of dancer I was. I never got to find my style. I never got to look in the mirror when I was at that studio and recognize somebody in the mirror who was confident and loved herself, because I didn't know what it felt like to move without being hurt and without fearing for if I stopped for a moment, then I would essentially get emotionally and mentally hurt and physically hurt because I'd be told to shut up and keep going. There's a lot about my disability and the symptoms that I experienced that ruined so many other aspects of my life too, and what hurts the most is when doctors ask me, how did you start feeling this pain? When did it all begin? I look back and I see a petrified, beaten down, physically, mentally, and emotionally whipped teenage child that just wanted to dance and just wanted to be in an environment that she felt good in. But instead, my body was tortured. My pain was weaponized against me. I was stigmatized for wanting to follow my doctor's protocols. I was talked down to for wanting to protect myself while I was vulnerable and injured. And when my doctors asks me, when did the pain start, it almost hurts more to look back at the roots of my disability, because I should have walked into that studio feeling safe and feeling good. And I should have grown up not having to normalize being in pain and then hurting myself even more for being in pain. I should have been allowed to heal. I should have been allowed to take my life in my own hands. I should not have been coerced and pressured into taking this random dance teacher's forceful, quote-unquote, advice over my doctors, and most importantly, my own intuition toward my body. That is a regret that I will never not have, and that's a time of my life that still makes me feel like crying for my younger self, because it's like, what the fuck? I was supposed to be having fun, and instead of having fun, I was in hell, and I was developing a disability that would ruin my life, rob me of my future, and make me forget what it felt like to even exist in a state where my body isn't feeling like it wants to die because of how much it hurts in. It's a 24/7 thing that I live through now. Every day and every second of my life hurts. And when I get older, as I get older, it doesn't get easier. It just gets harder. And that's not something I can do, because I can't go back in time and take myself out. I can't take myself out of that environment, and I wish I could. And I hope that if anybody is in a situation where they feel like dance is making their life worse like that, if you have a child that you're concerned about, whatever the situation is, dance is not worth hurting yourself for. And if it's dance you're after, true dance is not going to get you to hurt yourself to get to it. That's cult. That's a cult-ass mentality. That's an abusive studio. That's completely bypassing the reality of science and your doctor's orders. Like, dance shouldn't hurt. It just shouldn't. It shouldn't make you miserable. And you deserve to be in environments where dance does not cost you your life and does not cost you your able-bodiedness. Okay, so that being said, regardless of even if you're in a really healthy studio environment, you have to be aware that dance naturally is laced with a bunch of things that are unhealthy. I don't care how graceful ballerinas look on stage. If you take into account the body mechanics and the anatomy behind what a dancer's body has to go through to train in certain styles, I'd say hip-hop is typically the safest, and tap, but ballet, jazz, lyrical, modern, it's like, why are we doing oversplits on the wall? Why are we, not conditioning our bodies, but just expected to look graceful? And then even when we do condition our bodies, okay, well, my limbs are not supposed to be hypermobile to the point where I can slide my vagina, or if you're a guy, your nutsack to the floor in the middle of splits. Like, there are just things with your body that you should not be doing, objectively, period. There's a reason why if you ever get injured and you go to your physical therapist, when they give you a hamstring stretch, they're not telling you to completely put your legs 180 degrees parallel to the floor. They're going to have you do gentle stretching. Dance, regardless of how safe and happy and chill your studio is, it's going to come with some form of, I don't know, I can't help but see it as self-harm. And so I just want to really emphasize that as well. Personally, my recommendations as somebody who became disabled from dance would be, whether it's you or your kid or whoever, don't pursue something that asks you to hurt yourself, and do not allow people, regardless of their age, their background, their resume, regardless of the fact that they own a studio. I don't care if they run an entire planet that's a dance studio. Your body does not deserve to be discarded and dismissed like it's fucking disposable. It's an actual body. You are an actual person. Just like it's messed up for other people to feel entitled to treat you like you're a piece of garbage, same goes for your dance instructors and your studio environment. If you wake up feeling anxious about having to go to class after school, if you look in the mirror and you see somebody who is vulnerable and physically damaged and needs to rest, but you're not at a studio or in an environment where you're given the grace to do that, I would recommend honestly getting the fuck out or having a serious conversation, maybe with somebody else that you trust, about this, and like really make sure that your studio is going to honor your recovery process. That's all it comes down to, is are you honored and treated with dignity when you're vulnerable, when you're down? And not even that, but just as a person, even without injuries in the picture. You shouldn't be feeling like you're beaten down or treated like shit by your teachers who are supposed to be your mentors and giving you guidance. Dance does not have to be this ugly, mean, shitty place. I was scared to walk into class. I knew I was going to get treated like shit. I knew that being injured or being in a situation where I couldn't give my, God fucking forbid, I couldn't fouette my ass off, I knew that that wouldn't be respected and that I would just be hurt for hurting, literally. And if your studio doesn't honor you as a person at your highest state and at your lowest, most physically broken state, that's not a studio that you need to be a part of. That's not an environment that is going to benefit you long term. And any sort of dreams or goals that you have dance-wise, whether it's something you want to do until you graduate high school or something that you want to do for the rest of your life, there's a million doors that you can walk into. There's a million studios out there. And even if you live in an area where you've only got a couple, I would still advise, like, ask yourself, is it worth it to you? Is it worth not having the freedom and the autonomy over my body that I deserve? Is it worth it? And that's for you to decide personally. Like, again, I'm not here to tell anybody how they should or shouldn't live their life. But if I could go back and give myself a piece of advice, I would say leave. I'd say get the fuck out. Go to one of those recreational studios in your county that you live in, where everybody has fun and nobody cries because they are hurt and they aren't allowed to heal. Go somewhere that your body is going to be free to do what it needs to do, because dance really doesn't have to be a place where you aren't allowed to heal. Dance itself is supposed to be a healing art. It's a healing form of creativity. It's supposed to make you feel free and good, not just mentally and emotionally, but physically too. And I'd say also definitely, like, try and, like, really feel into the headspace you're in when you're hurting in dance, and, like, check in with yourself and maybe ask yourself questions like, am I hurting because I'm sore and tired, or am I hurting because something is off and my body is injured? Really know the difference and do your best. And if you don't know, then ask. If something's wrong, it doesn't make you a hypochondriac to go to your doctor, or go to even fucking just start with Googling, you know? Go get checked out and see what's wrong, because if you're developing an injury or you're already injured, I mean, I don't know, like, my story isn't just my story. There's millions of other people that have similar backgrounds, you know? Do you want to risk becoming disabled? Do you want to risk losing all the things that a disability requires you to lose? my social life, my personal life, my romantic life, my academic and career life, most of it's non-existent. This disability takes everything away from me every day. And I mean, I'm not saying if you get an injury, it's always going to be that bad and you can't recover, but fuck, dude, I thought I was an exception and I wasn't. So take care of yourself. Make sure that you respect your doctor's recommendations and your pain receptors in your body telling you this is too fucking much. It's not a crime to leave. It's not a crime to walk. You could literally, oh my god, do you know how many times I fantasize about being in class where my body couldn't take it anymore, and I look back on those situations and I'm like, God, I wish I would have just fucking walked out. I wish I just would have walked out. I wish I would have told off my teachers. I wish I would have literally done what was best for me, and I don't think that objectively speaking what's best for you is going to be allowing yourself to be hurt or continuing to drop your child off at a class or a team or a studio where this happens. And if you do have kids and this is a concern for you, please check in with your kids and please find a way to build a relationship with them where you talk about how their body feels and you let them explain to you what's going on. And I don't know, like, I feel like it would have been cool for me if I had somebody to talk to about this at the time. My mom didn't give a shit. My mom told me I was being ridiculous, even though I fucking started dreading waking up in the morning because of how bad it was. My mom was terribly abusive, and she was the first person in my life that ever made me feel like life wasn't worth living. So that's another thing I can say is if you're listening to this and you're worried about your kids' health and their body's safety, that's a good thing. Just make sure that you give them the space to try, but that you also give them the support of prioritizing their body and their health and their safety to the point where if anything ever happens or feels off, or they have questions or concerns, that they can share it with you. And I would talk to the teachers as well. Like, if you're enrolling your kid in a class, make your intentions clear. Be like, I don't want my kid to be in a studio where if her body's hurting, that's not respected. You know, ask them, how do you treat situations where kids get injured? How would I know if my kid's injured? How would you know if my kid's injured? Like, try and get a feel for it. And honestly, I would never take, I don't have kids, but I feel like if I was a parent, I'd never take another adult's word 100%. Like, at the end of the day, a dance studio is a business, and they're going to stand by what they believe is best for their team and their students versus what might actually be best for them in terms of their health and their safety. So I wouldn't take a teacher's word over your child's word, like, or your niece or your nephew or whoever you're a guardian of. But yeah, dance is not supposed to hurt, and it's not supposed to make you disabled and ruin your life. And if your dance studio or the people that you dance with make you feel like that's not true, and they make you feel like you have such high expectations for wanting to be treated like your body is worth being honored, then they suck. They suck as instructors. They suck as people. I'm sorry, but every day I live a life that I shouldn't be living, and it's because of that environment. Who knows if I would have developed a disability anyway, but I know that's not the case because that's not how it started.
I'm also going to respectfully and very sincerely recommend that if you do seek medical treatment, it's good to make sure that you're valuing your doctor's opinion over your dance instructor's opinion when it comes to injuries and health and, like, prevention of injuries. But be careful with doctors too, because a lot of times when you're young, doctors will write it off as, oh, you're young, it's just growing pains. Oh, you're young, yeah, it's a bad injury, but you'll get better, you'll bounce back, you're young. Fuck that, go to another doctor. Basically just keep working on getting help until you truly feel like your body's improving, and until you get to the point where you're sitting in an office with somebody and your intuition is like, okay, yeah, this is what I need.
Everything has an origin, and the origin of my disability, the fact that it's dance, it's just so twisted, and it's just such a sad fucking irony to me. Like, I shouldn't be disabled right now. I'm 27 years old. I should be traveling and hanging out with my friends. I should have the degree I wanted by now. Like, I should be living my life, but I'm not. I live my disability's life because no matter how much I have fought like hell to make it go away, some injuries develop into things that domino effect into all of these negative parts of your health, and you can't get rid of them. And of course, I'm always gonna try and like beat it, you know, like I feel like I'm that person with cancer that's like, okay, cancer can take me, but I'm gonna keep fighting it because, you know, I'm so upset, and I'm never gonna be at peace with the fact that this has to be the rest of my life, and I don't want to be, and I don't have to be. It still hurts to do anything. It still hurts to just sit down. It still hurts to just try and exercise. The pain is always there no matter what. Every day I wonder, what would life be if it wasn't there? Where would I be? What things would I have seen or accomplished or experienced? You know, I know people who are 70, 80 that still live bigger lives than me. Not to say like better, but they have more experiences. They have more layers of their life, whereas me, everything always comes down to pain because you can't beat every illness. You can't beat every disability. So God forbid anybody has to go through this. Like, if you're listening to this, I don't know if anybody will ever watch this or listen to this, but if you are, and it's the validation that you needed to step back from something or try something else, please follow your intuition and listen to your body, because anything that it has to say is now and forever always going to be more valuable than what anyone else could say about it, dance teacher or not. I think that pretty much covers everything I wanted to cover in this video, at least. And please, 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 if you have any questions or concerns and you would like to know my perspective on things to maybe offer you some peace of mind or a word of advice, obviously I'm just one person. I'm not saying I'm the ultimate decider of everything. But if you related to this video and you're maybe going through some confusion right now as a dancer or as a parent or guardian of somebody that dances, and you just have questions and you want to talk about it with somebody who gets it, please comment down below and ask me, tell me anything, and I'm happy. I will make a fucking full-on video just for you, I swear to God. If you're watching this, I love you. Please take care of yourself. You are always going to be more important than anything you can pursue as a dancer if what you're pursuing costs you to hurt yourself and possibly fuck up your life. Love you. Stay cool. Stay safe. Have fun. Bye.